There's another headline this week. Tulsa County District Attorney Steve Kunzweiler highlighting what he calls an exploding mental health crisis in Oklahoma, a day after he was stabbed and a day after his daughter was arrested.
Many families like ours have endured years of anxious-ridden concern for our affected loved ones.
He went on to criticize lawmakers for lack of action and asked them to speak to people on the front lines of that crisis.
I want you to talk with a psychiatrist. I want you to talk with an emergency room doctor.
Tonight, we're going in depth on barriers to mental health care in Oklahoma. 2 News Oklahoma's Jeanette Quesada spoke with a local emergency room psychiatrist today to get his perspective. Jeanette?
Naomi, the emergency room psychiatrist I talked with today, says there are limited resources when it comes to mental health services. Dr. Rod Purdy specializes in behavioral medication, working in the emergency room at Hillcrest Medical Center.
We see people that have had recent suicide thoughts or maybe a recent suicide attempt every day.
He says he sees patients with a wide spectrum of mental health problems.
People who are hallucinating, people who are dealing with drug or addiction or alcoholism, even homicidal thoughts.
His job is to assess their biological and social situations to figure out what kind of care they need. But he says assessing their need is only the first step. Finding that care can be an even bigger challenge. He says the recent closure of psychiatric facilities slashed bed capacity.
There was a psychiatric unit at Hillcrest where I work that closed 3 years ago. St. John's closed approximately 10 years ago, and Shadow Mountain closed approximately 4 years ago. So we do feel the impact of not having local beds.
He says even less intensive treatments like talk therapy are limited too.
I think it's also extremely difficult to get plugged into the outpatient services oftentimes. There's a limited number of therapists in Green Country that can provide the necessary treatment.
Tulsa County District Attorney Steve Kunzweiler saying this week these gaps in the healthcare system need to be fixed, and he wants lawmakers to talk to patients, first responders, and doctors like Purdy to find a solution.
The elected leaders of our state legislature need to make this a priority. Protecting our citizens is your job. Providing adequate infrastructure to safeguard all mentally ill citizens is your job.
Purdy says expanding Medicaid would help lower the barriers for mental health services and help keep psychiatric hospitals open and running to help Oklahomans.
People are not able to keep their lights on and pay to keep their offices unless they're getting adequately reimbursed.
And Purdy says if you know someone who may need some help, listen to them and offer to work together to get them the help they need to get to a better state of mind. Live in studio, Jeanette Quesada, 2 News Oklahoma.